Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where and when you are joining us in. And we are here for workshop 3 of the Tiny Experiments AI Action Class. If you have not yet had an opportunity to meet the amazing Karen Ward, she is going to be assisting with crowd control in the chat, helping remind folks that if you're not actively speaking or asking a question during today's AI action class, please remember to keep yourself on mute to preserve the audio quality for the other folks who are listening in. Let's get into today's presentation. Okay, Tiny Experiments, AI Action Class Workshop 3 of 4. We are going through the book Tiny Experiments by Anne-Laure Le Cunff. And if you have not yet done so, go buy this book. Anne-Laure Le Cunff, PhD, neuroscientist, author, founder of Nest Labs. Amazing person. I have not had the opportunity to meet her personally, but I'm loving her work. The Tiny Experiments book is available wherever you buy books, and she also runs a Nest Labs community with, I believe, over 100,000 people in her community, and many of those folks are here today. So big thank you to Donna, who invited her Nest Labs colleagues to join us, and Donna for requesting that we do this book this month. Let's take a look at what's next. In today's workshop, in our AI action class, this is the agenda that we always follow for our AI action classes. We have a brief welcome to help orient you to what is an AI action class. Then we spend some time learning about the AI workflow and the concepts in that specific workshop. Then you have an opportunity to do a hands-on exercise. You will be provided with an AI workflow that you can choose to interact with. Now, there are two options. There are some folks who like to run the workflow the same time that I'm demonstrating it on the screen. You're welcome to do that. And there are other folks who like to watch the demonstration and then run their AI workflow after I've modeled the demonstration. So begin to think about if you want to run the workflow while I'm demonstrating, or if you just want to witness it modeled on the screen and then run it once class is concluded. You can choose to do one or the other. Then we come back in community to reflect and discuss the material that we have covered. Next. Okay, so the way that this works, the way an AI action class works is that we take the concepts from a book and we turn them into a guided AI workflow. You learn the concepts in the book by doing them with AI, and you walk away with something real. So there are going to be 3 deliverables that you take away from today's workshop. Actually, I noticed that there's somebody who is not on mute. If you guys wouldn't mind muting yourself if you're not actively participating in the conversation, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, Katie, sorry, just to jump in, it's happened again. It was me that
Yes. Okay. Let's see what happens when I look in here. Oh, okay. Show layouts. I want full screen. That fix it?
Yes, we're back to we can see your full screen again.
Okay. Thank you, Karen.
We could disrupt.
No, you're great. So there's going to be 3 deliverables that you walk away with from today's action class. 1, you're going to have an opportunity to learn the concepts in the book. The AI workflow that we run teaches you the book's ideas as you work through each step. You're also going to have an opportunity to gain fluent AI fluency because you practice prompting and conversing with and directing an AI partner in real time. And finally, you'll have an opportunity to create a tangible deliverable. You walk away with a tangible output you can use in your life or business immediately. So here are the 4 workshops that we have been covering in the Tiny Experiments workshop series. Workshop 1 was from rigid goals to experimental mindsets. Workshop 2 was uncovering your invisible scripts. And today in workshop 3, we are going to design your tiny experiments. We're going to design low risk, high learning experiments before full commitment. So the key topics that we will be looking at today are experiment design principles, success metrics, time boxing, minimum viable tests, and learning from attempts. So what we will create today is a tiny experiment design canvas. 3 ready-to-run experiments with hypotheses. And in next week's class, we will be looking at building growth loops and packed systems. So hope you can join us live. And if you can't, these recordings are saved on my YouTube channel. So first, let's take a look at the AI workflow. This is an example on the screen of an AI workflow. And I've shared with you before that an AI workflow is very similar to a long prompt, but a long prompt is not an AI workflow. There are some similarities and differences. So for example, in our AI workflows, we bake in some guardrails so that AI can't take us off down a rabbit hole. We instruct the AI to keep us on task, and we give it a specific focus. The other thing that we bake into this AI workflow is that we run these step by step, and the AI dynamically changes its responses based on the context that we give the AI. So what I'm going to have everybody do now so that we can go get today's workflow is I would like you to go to bit.ly. Now let's take a look at this AI workflow before we start working with this, right? I always encourage folks when they're working with an AI workflow to read the introductory paragraph so we have some context about what it is that we're going to be doing, and then quickly scan each one of the steps so that we can get our head in the right place to be able to respond to the questions that the AI is going to be asking us. So here we're instructing AI to act as an expert in experimental design and iterative learning, drawing on the principles from Anne-Laure Lecomte's Tiny Experiments. Your role is to guide me through creating a tiny experiment design canvas. 3 ready-to-run experiments for current challenges with hypotheses and success criteria. At each step, explain where we're at in the process, ask for context to complete the step, perform the action, confirm completion, and only then move on to the next step. The goal is to finish a complete tiny experiment design canvas by the time we reach the final step. So the steps are, step 1, we are going to identify your challenge areas. Step 2, form your hypotheses. Step 3, design your tiny experiments. Step 4, define success criteria and learning metrics. Step 5, create your experiment timeline. And step 6, final deliverable, your tiny experiment design canvas. So what we need to do is we need to copy this workflow, the whole thing. You're going to see me copy all of this all the way to the top where it says run this workflow step by step. Let's go into Claude has been my LLM of choice. No, I can't spell Claude. You guys, wow, this is like, it feels like a Monday, but I've got fat fingers and not enough coffee. Okay, so all of our workflows are LLM agnostic, so you are welcome to use whatever LLM you want to use. Here I am using Claude, but what we need to do is we need to paste the prompt in here. I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And now the AI is going to begin asking me a series of questions. So, hey, Katie, I'm your Tiny Experiments coach. I'm here to help you stop overthinking and start learning. Excellent. By designing small, low-risk experiments that turn your biggest uncertainties by designing small, low-risk experiments to turn your biggest uncertainties into actual data. Here is the core idea. Instead of betting everything on a big goal and feeling paralyzed when you're not sure it'll work, we run tiny experiments. Short, specific tests that generate insight whether they succeed or fail. Uncertainty becomes a research question instead of a source of anxiety. I love this. Here's what we'll work through together. Identify your challenge areas, 3 places where you're stuck, uncertain, or curious. Form your hypotheses. Turn each into a testable, if I try X, I'll learn Y statement. Design your tiny experiments. Make each one small, specific, and startable this week. Define success criteria and learning metrics so you know what you learned regardless of outcome. Create your experiment timeline, real dates, real commitments, and the final deliverable, your complete tiny experiments design canvas. Before we dive in, would you like a quick explanation of what makes a tiny experiment different from a regular goal or project? And yes, actually, I would like that information. So here's the quick breakdown. A regular goal is outcome focused. I will land 3 new clients by Q2. If that doesn't happen, it feels like failure, even if you learned a ton along the way. A tiny experiment is learning focused. I'll try this specific outreach approach for 2 weeks and see what I learn about what resonates. The result, whatever it is, becomes useful data, not a verdict on your worth or strategy. The key difference is it's small by design, runs in days or weeks, not months. Low stakes, failure is just information, not a setback. Hypothesis driven, you're testing an assumption, not chasing a result. Time boxed, it ends, you reflect, you decide what's next. Anne-Laure Lecomte's framing is that most of us treat uncertainty like a problem to solve before we act. Tiny experiments flip that. Uncertainty is the reason to act, just at a smaller scale first. Ready to find your 3 challenge areas? Let's go. So, what's a decision you've been postponing because you don't have enough information yet? Where do you feel stuck or spinning your wheels? What are you curious about trying but haven't committed to because it feels too uncertain or risky? Wow. Goodness. How will I answer these today? Now, one of the things I want to remind everybody is that when we learn by doing with AI, it's always important to bring real problems and challenges to your work instead of using with hypothetical or theoretical scenarios. So you can see me struggling with that right now because I'm thinking, what challenge areas do I want to give to AI? And let's do a hack and ask AI to answer this based on what it knows about me to see if that can get us unstuck and not feeling writer's block. Answer this question based on what you know about me. Let's see what it says. Okay, a decision you've been postponing, a client contract expansion, right? I've also been looking at the federal ban on anthropic products that has been in the news recently. Where you're stuck or spinning your wheels, LinkedIn outreach, genuine uncertainty about whether the approach is what's working, something you're curious about but haven't committed to, the Townie Business Circle premium tier, you've launched it. Yes. Do these feel like the 3 right areas to experiment in? Yes, I want to replace experiment 1 with the new CEO operating system that I have been testing for the last several weeks. I am learning a ton, but it still feels completely uncertain and unhinged because it's new and different and just completely mind-blowing. Okay. Love that. The discomfort you're describing, this is working, but I can't fully explain why yet, is exactly the kind of fertile ground tiny experiments are made for. Let's make it rigorous so you can actually trust what you're learning. Here's your updated challenge list. The CEO operating system you've been testing is a new personal operating system, but it still feels unstructured and hard to articulate. The core uncertainty.
Katie, we're back in tiny mode again.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me switch that back. There we go. Okay, you're testing a new personal operating system. Challenge area 2, LinkedIn outreach. You're running multi-turn DM sequences with real effort, but core uncertainty is which specific elements of the approach are actually driving responses and conversations versus what is just noise. Challenge area 3, the Townie Business Circle Venture Fest. Haven't fully committed to a growth or format direction. The core uncertainty, what would it take to make this meaningfully bigger, and is now the right time to find out? Yeah, I like these. Yes. So do these feel like the 3 areas to experiment with? If so, let's move to step 2. We're going to move to step 2. That looks good. Now we turn each challenge area into a testable, if I try X, I'll learn Y statement. Remember, a good hypothesis isn't about being right. It's about learning something specific, 1 question each. Challenge area 1, the CEO operating system. You've been in it for weeks and it's producing results but feels unhinged. What's one specific element of the operating system you've been testing that you think might be the thing actually driving the results, but you're not sure yet? And what do you think would happen if you isolated and intentionally tested just that piece? Challenge area 2, LinkedIn outreach. What's one approach or variable in your DM sequences you've considered changing or testing, a different opener, but haven't deliberately isolated yet? What's your gut instinct? Challenge area 3, the Tiny Business Circle. What's one thing you've been curious about trying to grow or evolve either of these, but haven't committed to because it felt too uncertain? What do you think might happen if you just ran a small version of it? Okay. So I'm going to use my Whisper Flow tool to respond to these questions because there is some deep context that I want the AI to know about these challenge areas. Let's see here. Okay, in regards to the CEO operating system, I'm going to give you more context because I have installed an operating system on the desktop of my computer that interacts with Claude Cowork daily and runs specific elements of my business. So this is actually kind of a big experiment. So I don't want to fly in the face of the tiny experiments heart of the work. But I am not sure what I should isolate and intentionally test. It's already doing a lot of things correctly. And I guess my hypothesis is that if I continue to work with it daily, I will make daily incremental progress and improvements and refinements to the operating system over time. And making the system perfect on day one is just not realistic. Okay, so I've recorded that response for challenge area 1. Similar in challenge area 2, the LinkedIn outreach, I have been testing AI SOPs for my DM sequences, and they're working really well. My engagement is very high because I've been able to personalize my outreach at scale. And I think that that is one of the reasons that my engagement is good. And I am looking at turning this into a bigger part of my outreach campaign by perhaps incorporating rules for replying to emails or messages on other platforms like Facebook. Okay, now challenge area 3. In regards to the Townie Business Circle and Venture Fest, I have been curious about growing the Venture Fest, especially in 2026. But I haven't committed because it does feel uncertain and I haven't had the bandwidth to do this. I'm not sure what to experiment with in this area, but I know that this needs to be launched by April in order to have proper momentum by October when the event will happen. Okay, so I'm going to give all of this context to my AI and let's see what it gives me back. So, helpful context, let me reflect what I'm hearing before I write the hypotheses. On the CEO operating system, the experiment is already running. What you actually need isn't a new test, it's a documentation and refinement loop so the learning doesn't stay chaotic. The hypothesis should be about capturing and stabilizing insight, not adding more variables. On LinkedIn, you found something that works, personalized AI-assisted outreach at scale, and you're ready to expand the surface area. The experiment is about whether the same approach transfers to other platforms' channels without losing what makes it effective. On VentureFest, the real constraint is bandwidth and a hard deadline. April is 7 weeks away. The experiment needs to be small enough to run now while answering the question of whether bigger is viable. So here are the 3 hypotheses. Hypothesis 1 for the CEO operating system. If I build a brief daily reflection loop into my CEO OS, capturing what worked, what didn't, and one refinement, then I will learn which specific element in the system are driving results and begin converting chaos into a repeatable, teachable framework. I like that. Yes. Hypothesis 2. If I adopt my AI-assisted personalization SOP for one additional platform, Facebook or email replies, then I will learn whether the approach is channel agnostic or whether LinkedIn's context is what's actually making it work. True. Well, yes, not true, but I like that hypothesis. Hypothesis 3. If I run one small low-effort test of expanded VentureFest interest before April, a survey, a conversation with a past attendee, or single outreach to a potential sponsor or partner, then I will learn whether the appetite for a bigger event actually exists before I commit bandwidth to planning it. Yes. So, do these 3 hypotheses capture what you're genuinely curious to discover? If yes, let's move to step 3 and make one concrete and runnable. Yes is the answer. So, I'm going to give it yes. Now, we're on step 3 out of 6. Let's design the tiny experiment. The goal is experiment small enough to start this week, specific enough that you'll know what you learned, and low risk enough that the result, whatever it is just data. Okay, experiment 1 for the operating system. What's the smallest possible daily reflection loop you could build into your existing OS? Think a prompt, a template, a 5-minute ritual, not a whole new system. How many days are you willing to run this before you pause and assess? Do you need anything to make it work? A specific Claude prompt, a Docker reminder? Yes. Yes, for the CEO operating system, I want to do a 5-minute ritual. Not at the very end of the day, because sometimes that doesn't happen. The bottom falls out and I don't do my closing ritual, but perhaps sometime in the afternoon where I just respond to how is the system working for me today on a scale of 1 to 10. And if the number is 4, what would make it a 5? So let's do that for the experiment for the CEO operating system. Okay. Now, experiment 2. Yeah, for experiment 2, I definitely want to start with email replies. And I'm in the process of updating the SOP right now so that we can use what's working in LinkedIn and apply it to emails. Okay. And VentureFest, the single smallest action you could take to test appetite for a bigger event. How much time are you willing to spend? I want to reach out to the Menard Chamber of Commerce and Industrial Development District and find out if we can get a point of contact at their ISD to find out if their high school students are interested in participating in this year's event. Here we go. Give it my answers. Okay, all 3 are specific, doable, and genuinely useful. Let me design them. Experiment 1, the 3 p.m. system check. Every afternoon, answer 2 questions. How is the system working for me today on a scale of 1 to 10? If it's a 4, what would make it a 5? Log the answer. Even 1 sentence counts. Time box, 2 weeks, 5 minutes per day. Resources needed, a single recurring prompt built into your CEO operating system or a standing calendar block at 3 p.m. with the 2 questions embedded. Experiment 2, the email personalization transfer test LinkedIn outreach expansion hypothesis. Specific action, finish updating your AI outreach SOP to include email reply rules, then run it on your next batch of email responses using the same personalization at scale approach that's working on LinkedIn. 2 weeks, existing LinkedIn SOP, current email thread, backlog as test material. Experiment 3, the Menard ISD reach. Make 1 direct outreach, the Menard Chamber of Commerce in our Industrial Development District to identify point of contact at the ISD, specifically to gauge whether high school students would participate. Time box 1 week, 2 weeks total to get a response. Resource needed, contact info for the Menard Chamber. You likely already have this, and a 3 to 4 sentence outreach message. Do these experiments feel doable? Yes. So we're going to move on to step 4. Define success criteria and learning metrics. Traditional goals have success and failure. Tiny experiments have learning outcomes. This step is about knowing what to pay attention to so that whatever happens, you walk away with something useful. 3 questions for each experiment. Experiment 1, the 3 p.m. system check. What would tell you the CEO OS is actually working? What would a consistent 7, 8, or 9 look like? What would tell you something needs to change? How will you capture what you're learning? Experiment 2, the email personalization. What would tell you the personalization approach is working in email the same way? What would tell you that it's not working? What signals will you watch for? Okay. Experiment 3, what would a yes, we're interested response tell you? What would a no response? How will you capture what you learn from this single conversation? And I want to share a thought that's occurring to me right now. Like, I love this question, define success criteria and learning metrics, because there are many times that we simply overlook this step. It's simple but not obvious. But if we don't know what success looks like, we don't know if we ever get there, right? So, love this question. So, let's give it the answers. For experiment 1, a consistent 7, 8, or 9 in my daily life would look like an operating system that is intuitive, anticipates my needs, and stays on the rails. It doesn't get off track. How I will capture what I'm learning is the daily check-in, the daily checkout, and the 3 p.m. ritual where I record my reflections. Okay, so that is what success looks like. What would tell me the approach is working is that I would see my calendar booked with even more sales calls, and I would see an uptick in sales revenue. The signals that I will watch for are more meetings booked, more sales, and the amount of engagement that I'm getting from people that I'm reaching out to. And for Menard, a yes, we're interested. When success would look like, thank you for reaching out. Here's the person you need to contact at the ISD. Then when I reach that person at the ISD, they would respond the same day and say something along the lines of, oh my goodness, yes, we've been waiting for an opportunity to do something like this. How can we get started immediately? Okay, so that's what success looks like for each one of those items. So we are moving on to, okay, so now it's clarifying what it heard me say. The 3 p.m. system check, it's confirming. Signals to watch for, how you capture your learning. Okay. Email personalization transfer. Confirmation looks like the calendar filling with more sales calls, uptick in revenue, high engagements. Responses, disconfirmation looks like responses feel flat, generic, or transactional, right? Signals to watch for, how you'll capture the learning. Track meetings booked and revenue during the 2-week window. Note any qualitative feedback or tone shifts in replies. Experiment 3, the Menard ISD reach. Information, we've been waiting for something like this. Signals to watch for, how you'll capture the learning. Do these criteria give you a clear way? Yes. I'm going to say yes here, and we're going to move on to step 5. And if you guys recall, we had 6 steps in the total process before we get to our final deliverables. So let's create the experiment timeline. Good intentions become actual commitments. 3 quick questions. Sequence. Which experiment do you want to run first? Or do you want to run all 3 simultaneously? They're small enough that parallel might work, but I want you to decide that. Valid. Start dates. When could you realistically start each one? Reflection points for each experiment. When will you pause to assess what you've learned? At the end, or do you want a midpoint check-in too? Experiment 1 is a 2-week run. Experiment 2 is 2 weeks from when your updated SOP is complete. Experiment 3, 1 week to make contact, 2 weeks total. These can all be running at the same time. If that feels right, they're different enough that they won't compete with each other. Okay, so sequence, start dates, and reflection points. Okay, we've got our operating system. Okay, yes. We want to start the operating system test immediately. And we will reflect on that daily. We will start the email personalization transfer as soon as the SOP is complete, which I hope is going to be within the next 3 to 5 days. And I want to reflect on that every time I run that SOP. And for the experiment 3, the Menard ISD reach, that will happen that will happen after I onboard my new teammate, because this will be an experiment that she will be running. Okay, there we go. Let's give this information. Perfect, your experiment timeline. 3 p.m. system check starts today. Personal email personalization transfer starts around March 8th when the SOP is complete, and the Menard ISD reach will start after Chelsea is onboarded and up to speed. So does this timeline feel realistic and motivating? If so, let's complete your final canvas. I'm going to say yes. Okay. Now it's going to pull this together for me. What I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to ask it to give it to me in an HTML file so that I can add it to the operating system that is running on my desktop. And then it will be part of the operating system and it will know that these are the tiny experiments that I am currently experimenting with. So while that is generating right now, let's go take another look at our presentation here so we can understand what we are doing. So if you have been running this alongside me, I remember I said the best practices are to work on your work, bring a real challenge, use your actual goals, real plans, and your genuine uncertainties. That's how this works because this is your time to learn and explore AI fluency, and learn and explore around the concepts taught in the Tiny Experiments book. And as you saw me demo, if you can't think of the answers, ask the AI to help. It can make suggestions based on what it knows about you, and it can also make suggestions based on best practices. If you get stuck, just speak to the AI as though you were giving instructions to an in-person assistant. And let's take a look at our final deliverable here before we go back into community to share feedback. So this is creating it in a document. You can see it's a docx, which I do not want it in a docx, but let's take a look at what it gives me. Tiny experiment, design canvas, turn uncertainty into data, run small, learn fast. So here's the challenge areas: the CEO operating system, the LinkedIn outreach expansion, and the Venture Fest. So here's the hypothesis, the action, time box, resources, confirmations, confirmation, watch for these things for experiment 1. Here is experiment 2, the email personalization transfer. Here's experiment 3, the Menard ISD reach. And here's the experimenter's commitment. I commit to treating every result, expected or not, as learning, not judgment. These experiments don't measure my worth. They generate the data I need to build something better. Excellent. But now I'm going to instruct the AI to turn this into an HTML so that I can weave it into the operating system that I'm already running. This is fantastic. Can you please turn this into an HTML document that I can use in my operating system? Okay, so I'm going to let that run, and in a moment or two, we can take a look at what this HTML looks like. But I'm going to come back into community here and get some feedback and respond to Q. And so, who ran the AI workflow the same time that I did? Yay, I see Ashley Phillips' hand up. Ashley, would you be willing to come off mute and share what your experience was like?
Yes, it was, it was really nice. I didn't get completely all the way through as far as you because I found myself pausing to really focus on what you were saying, but I'm to designing my tiny experiment. And I just really appreciate feeling like I have this personal coach, like kind of like calming me and coaching me, like, look, how do you eat an elephant? One little bite at a time. So, if you do just this one thing, well, it's more than what you were doing. So it's a starting point.
Excellent. Yes. And thank you for sharing that you didn't make it all the way through the AI workflow. I think that you are not the only one. Run these fast just so that everybody can see the demonstration and the modeling of it. But if you do want to do this thoroughly, you will want to take a little bit more time to think about the context you want to give the AI, because when you give it good context in, you're going to get good context out. So if anybody else is in a similar situation and you didn't go through this as fast as I did, that is perfectly okay. Give yourself permission to take time with this content and give it good, relevant information. Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Ashley. Who else completed the workflow? Karen, did you?
I didn't, but I just wanted to highlight a question that Donna posed
Yeah.
about whether or not there's a difference in output based on what you level you're choosing, whether it's Opus, Sonnet, quick response, deeper response. Have you or anybody that is working with this experimented with that?
Yeah, that is a really good question. My hypothesis, to speak in today's workshop language, My hypothesis would be is that yes, there probably will be some difference in output because the quick response is programmed to not reason as long as like the 4.6 extended. So what you could do, Donna, is you could open in two different windows and run the same question, one in instant response and one in Sonnet 4.6, and compare and contrast. And that's an example of a tiny experiment. And my hypothesis would be is that you would notice some slight deviations in both. But yeah, if you do that, Donna, please report back. Let us know what you see. Way to learn and explore. Well done. Any questions? Feedback, insights, any aha moments? I know we got through today's workflow pretty quickly, so we've got about 15 minutes left of time that we can share in community. And there's also an option for you guys to get that 15 minutes back in your day if you want. So if you feel satisfied with the workflow and you guys want to bug out, you're welcome to do that. If not, hang out. I think I see Tom maybe raising his hand. Tom, are you raising your hand?
Yes, I had a quick question about, and this may be to not on a level that you're looking to go, but when I was using Claude, I've set up a project to track all of these workshops that we've been doing. So this is the third one. I've got the mindset audit, all of that within a project in Claude.
Nice work.
Again, that's an experiment, and I don't know how much difference that makes. Do you have any experience with that? Does it make a big difference? How do you think?
A good question. I feel like we had a similar question last week. There was somebody that said, what if we took the deliverables from workshop 1 and 2 and fed it into workshop 3? And I think that that's actually a really great way to get even more insights out of it, because we know that the more context that we give the LLMs, the better the responses we're going to get out of it. And one of the gaps that we're noticing for leaders right now is that most people are simply not giving the LLM enough context to leverage the expertise of the LLM. So, Tom, my hypothesis would be using that approach with projects and feeding it the previous deliverables is probably going to give you an increased depth of knowledge around the subject matter.
What I am seeing is it is referencing the results of the first two workshops when I answer the questions in this one. And so it'll bring up, based on what you said here, this is something that you could try, kind of an approach.
Yeah,
So
because it has all that context.
so that'll be interesting. The other thing I guess I'm accidentally testing is I've been using Sonnet 4.6 extended. This time I guess it's defaulted to Opus 4.6 extended. We'll see if it looks any difference. I didn't go through the workshop yet, but we'll see if there's anything there.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. I would hypothesize that you're going to get even more value out of it when you do it that way. One of the things that we're teaching in our CEO operating system is getting the context from the organization, such as like the mission, the vision, the strategic planning documents, the branding documents, all of this kind of stuff. And when you feed that into the operating system, it knows, and it's going to create the deliverables based on that context that you've engineered. So, Tom, I think that one of the reasons that I specifically chose not to layer that information is because I know that we have some folks that are on today's call that are at the beginning of their AI fluency journey. And I just didn't want to layer those levels of complexity. But definitely, what we're doing can be scaled up like you did, Tom, or scaled down if you're new to
That makes
AI.
sense.
So thank you for sharing that. Excellent.
Katie, this is such a very tactical, basic question, but when it generated that summary document in Word for you with all the different hypotheses and the experiments related to them, that formatting, my Claude has never produced a document that looks that nicely formatted out of the gates. And I'm wondering if that's something that you have built into your operating system so that when it generates summary docs like that for you, there is some light formatting. Because I'm like, how does my Claude produce something that looks like that?
Yeah, good question.
And actually, he's asking if you can show that document again so we can look at it together.
Yeah, I will. Because if you recall, I asked it to turn it into an HTML. So here is the new output, right? And I think that this looks even better than the document I had
It
it
does look
produced,
even better. So I'm like, how?
right?
Tell us how.
I'm not really sure how to answer that, Karen, but yes, I suspect so. I'm running this in the Claude web browser, right? But I also run I have Claude installed on my desktop that is connected to my desktop. And so I suspect that one of the reasons that I got the output this good is because it's pulling from its memories in Claude Chat that are also attached to Cowork on my desktop. So it knows that I've created design instructions that are in my desktop that say, here are the rules about when you produce something, this is what you do.
You've got like a style guide or a brand guide or something like that
Exactly.
underlying. Yeah, it looks great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what it looks like, and I've asked it to turn it into an HTML document because now what I can do is I can drag this HTML into my operating system, and it becomes part of the brains of the operating system. Okay. So yeah, that is how that worked. But if you do want to see the document, because there are still some people who are like, I can't grasp a reality where we're not using documents or PDFs any longer. Just brace yourself, that day is coming. But here is what the document looks like. And I'm not a big fan of these documents for a variety of reasons, but also because if I try to open this on my computer in Pages, it doesn't render properly. I'm not sure what would happen if I opened it in Drive. Let's try that. Let's see. No, authenticate to export it to the Drive. So I would have to download this here, then upload it to the Google Drive. And again, I find that that is problematic because it doesn't render the formatting correctly. So HTML, in my opinion, is just a lot easier to work with across media channels.
The question.
I
Yeah.
also find that a lot easier to read and more visually appealing. Is it possible to share the formatting, the HTML formatting? I haven't used HTML for anything. So is it possible to share that?
What do you mean? Is it
Whatever you
like,
do that makes it come out all like Karen said, like all pretty like that. I don't know how to ask that
so
question
you,
either.
I would just tell AI that. Like I mean, if the question is, Katie, can you share that HTML file with us so that we can look at it? The answer is yes, but I don't think that's what you're asking. And another question it could be is like, okay, if I generate something in HTML, can I attach it to an email the same way that I do with a PDF? Can I share it? Yes. The answer is yes. You can share an HTML the same way that you would attach a PDF to an email. But I think that what you're asking, Karen and Donna, is like, how do I get that output? And so what I would do is I would just talk to the AI. So here, let me show you what I would do and say, this design is just not suiting my mood today, and I would like to use the hex code FF0069 or something for a bright fuchsia color. Can you please adjust that? Right. So I'm asking it to change its design. Oh yeah, I did get the hex code right. It's my favorite hex code. Good energy. Let's blow out the navy and teal palette and go full fuchsia. I'll rebuild it around this as the dominant color. So what I'm illustrating here is that you can just simply tell the AI what you want it to do. Like you don't even have to use correct design language. Just be like, that doesn't feel right. Can you do something better? But if you do have the lexicon for design language and you know exactly what you want, tell the AI to do the thing. Like if you have a background in marketing and you're like, I want the call to action button to go here and I want to do it according to this methodology, whatever, you just ask it to do it and it's going to go ahead and change it. So is this now speaking to the question that you were asking, Donna?
Yes. And also Ashley and Brandon in the chat said that you can basically just upload documents and ask it to create something similar like that. So would it be possible? I like the way that came out. Would it be possible for you to share your output in that Google Drive and I could just put it in the AI and tell mine to make it look like that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let me download it quickly before it turns hot pink. And I will put that in the public drive right now. I will upload this into the public drive, and then everybody has access to that tiny experiment canvas. But please note that if you open it in the public drive, it's going to look like code, right? So you need to download this to your computer, and then you open it in Google Chrome or something similar to be able to render it properly. But HTML is important because it can be read by both humans and machines. Okay, and we can see it disappeared right here because it's actually correcting itself in real time. And when it gets done redesigning this, we'll see it come back up on the screen.
Katie, can you export that HTML into a different format, like a PDF?
I don't know that you would want to, but what I would do instead is let me go into where I downloaded this. So I'm going to open this in Chrome, right? So here's the full version of this. You wouldn't export it, but what I have found a lot of times with these is that if you hit Command Print, it will render in a way that can still be a printable PDF. And then you can just choose to save this as a PDF just by hitting Command Print.
I know there's in my own world, there's so many clients that'll be like, I need the document. I want to print the document. So yeah, being able to print it to a PDF from a web page.
Exactly.
Either save it or physically print it is awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I have a lot of clients that are like that too. Like they just can't wrap their brain around that yet. And so that was a pain point that I solved for in the beginning. I was like, hey, what if I hit Command Print and say this is a PDF? How does it show up? Now, not all HTML files will show up quite this nice. And so there may be a couple other rework steps that you need to throw in there. But this is what I've found to be the quick and easiest way to do that. So if you still have someone who's like, I need to print this and hold it in my hands, this is how I would do that. I would just still create the HTML, but then on your computer, just hit File Print and then save it as a PDF. Let's see if we've got Fuchsia. Oh, there we go. We got our Fuchsia now. Look at that, guys. And definitely I still like the blue, but this was just a wild example to show that you can just ask the AI to do the thing that you want it to do, and it will just do it. That Fuchsia, if you are not awake yet, that will wake you up.
And Katie, like even just aside from color, you can say, you can give it you can tell it kind of a vibe I've done. It's like, I want a polished professional. I would like a fun upbeat, like more fun for kids, like, age kinder.
Definitely.
If you can profile your target audience that this is presenting to, it'll, yeah.
Yep.
Or that font's not very legible. Let's take it from a script to print to type.
Yep. And there's a lot of people that I think like to overcomplicate AI, but it's really not as complicated as some people like to present it. You just need to know what to ask it to do. You need to know what you want it to do, which for some people is a challenge, right? Like a lot of us go to coaching sessions and you're like, okay, what's your goal? And you're like, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm confused. And I don't like, you can't even communicate what it is that you want. Like that's actually a hurdle. But if you can communicate what it is that you want clearly and tell the AI, you're going to get there. Yes. Claude knows I have ADHD from previous conversations and its output was bang on. Yeah. I've told my AI that I'm neurodivergent. And sometimes when it tries to give me like 20 pages of context, I'll be like, I can't read through all that. I was like, so you're going to have to give me smaller bites. I was like, stop doing that to me. I'll be like, I'm sorry, Katie. You're right. Let's just do this one step at a time. I'm like, yeah, get with the program. 2 minutes. Before the top of the hour. Donna, did you have another question or comment?
Just going back to what Tom was asking, what would the difference be between just taking the output and copying those into a new chat versus just running everything on the same chat? Is there a benefit or drawback to one versus the other?
Yeah, I think that if you ran it all, well, one of the challenges that I run into is that I'm a heavy user and I try to maximize every single session I use with AI. So I will frequently get to the end of a thread and it runs out of character limit, so I'll run into a character limit problem. So I think that if you do it in a project, it can help you avoid that character limit problem, especially if you're doing like heavy outputs, but I think it's just going to, You could do it in all in one thread, especially if you're new to AI use. That's probably where you're going to start because it's like we have to make these leaps of logic. And so until you max out your first thread, you don't start thinking about doing projects. But then once you do projects and like you max out the whole thing, then you start thinking about installing an operating system on your computer, right? But it's like we have to make these leaps of logic before we can get to that next step.
So as long as it's in a project, it'll draw from all those different ones. But that's what I was running into is wouldn't pull things from other chats. It wasn't pulling context from other chats. And so then I just started doing the projects. But if it's in the same project, it will pull from different chats.
I can't confirm that. I would need to look that up. I don't know the definitive answer to that.
I was seeing that at least from the first 2 workshops, it was pulling data. It was pulling information from the first chat in a project to the next one.
Okay. Thank you.
But
Appreciate you doing these, Katie.
Hey, no, my pleasure. This is a lot of fun. I'm so glad that you guys are here for this. And I am actually going to try to wrap our call 1 minute early because I have 1 minute for a bio break before I go into my next call. So everybody have a fantastic Thursday, and I will catch you all next week for the 4th workshop in the Tiny Experiment series. Have a great one, guys.
thank you.